जॉगिंग कर लेंगे। खड़े हो जाइए, खड़े हो जाइए और जॉगिंग स्टार्ट कीजिए। 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2। थोड़ा फास्ट चलिए चलिए, पॉसिबल है तो एडी हमारी बटक्स को लगाने की कोशिश। वेरी नाइस प्रकाश चौहान, फाइन। ओके, शांति से बैठ जाना है, अपने अपने जगह पे स्थान ग्रहण कीजिए। आंखें बंद करके बैठिए। अभी जो भी हमने स्पॉट जॉगिंग किया है, इसकी वजह से शरीर में जहां जहां तनाव आया होगा वहां खुद दिल से जाइए, मन से जाइए और वहां के स्नायु को रिलैक्स कीजिए। टोटली टोटली रिलैक्स, संत श्वसन। सांस के ऊपर कहीं भी नियंत्रण नहीं है, पूरी बॉडी रिलैक्स, संत श्वसन।
गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीबॉडी। बहुत बहुत सारे नंबर्स में आप लोग आए हो। वी आर एक्सट्रीमली एक्साइटेड अबाउट दैट एंड आप लोग सुनना चाहते हो अबाउट कोरोना COVID-19. You want we are so much very proud about your energy. Morning 6:30 in lockdown period is not a job of an ordinary individual. So this all shows that you are extraordinary and you are very much alert and aware individuals and citizens. So I will not take a lot of time. ये सब time हमारे speakers का है. Let me tell you about the speakers. इन लोगों के अगर प्रोफाइल जो मेरे पास आए हैं, तो they have done so much of work. की प्रोफाइल 8 पेजेस के थे. Now I have cut it down to hardly hardly 30 seconds. तो आप समझ सकते हो कि मेरे लिए कितना टफ जॉब होगा. But I want to give that time to them. Okay. तो आज का फ्लो ऑफ द प्रोग्राम बताती हूँ. We have Dr. Prashni, who is a pathologist and who has done extensive research, and now currently she is the principal investigator PI in Corona COVID-19 in Maryland, USA. And we have Dr. Raji Krishna. She is the internal medicine, MD internal medicine and infectious disease physician. वो भी मेरीलैंड में काम कर रही है. तो अपने पास एक पैथोलॉजिस्ट एक फिजिशियन है. So the flow of the program is that Dr. Rashmi will speak, then we will go to Dr. Raji, then it will go to again Dr. Rashmi, and then we will have question and answer session. Which you will have to put it on the chat. आपको कभी भी कुछ सूझ रहा है तो keep putting, और आपको प्राइवेट पर्सनल चैट में डालना है तो आप just identify the name. Dr. तुषार समदानी is going to moderate the question and answer session. तो आप उनको डाल सकते हैं आपके क्वेश्चन. So
शिल्पा, आवाज क्लियर नहीं है बोले.
Okay. So Dr. Rashmi.
इको येतोय तुझ्या आवाजात.
It's okay now. Yeah, thank you so much. So something about Dr. Rashmi. She is from Latur, then later on got added into Mumbai. Currently she is settled in USA. It's been around 13 years. DCP, Dr. Rashmi Samdani, is now in USA. उनका MBBS नीरज से हुआ है. Very proud to say that उनका DCP जो है पैथोलॉजी डिग्री that she has done from Government Medical College औरंगाबाद. उसके बाद MD in pathology has been done in USA, and then she has done one more course. She has done a lot of research in USA in pathology. बहुत सारे ब्रांचेस में उन्होंने काम किया है, गैस्ट्रोइंटेस्टाइनल पैथोलॉजी में और ऑन्कोपैथोलॉजी में इनका बहुत सारा काम हुआ है. इनके रिसर्च पेपर्स भी बहुत सारे हैं. इनके रिसर्च पेपर्स को इनके जर्नल्स को ऑलमोस्ट 48 बार लोगों ने रेफर किया है फॉर देयर ओन स्टडीज एंड देयर ओन प्रेजेंटेशन. So this is the most simplified and shortened profile of Dr. Rashmi. Rashmi, I hope I have done justice to you, to your huge experience and expertise. So she has served multiple medical branches in various centers in the US, and now she is teaching medical students also. Currently, she is in research into COVID pandemic in MedStar Hospital of Maryland, USA.
So basically, thank you so much for this wonderful introduction, Dr. Shilpa. I'm really excited to see the enthusiasm of people in India. They are 30 in the morning. They are all excited with our talk. I'm very happy. So सब बड़े लोगों को मेरा नमस्ते. यहाँ पे US में it is actually a little late in the night over here in US, but I'm joined by my friend and my colleague Dr. Rakhi Krishnan, and we are both very excited to share our COVID-19 pandemic experience with all of you there. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Seema Dahar for creating this wonderful platform for us to share our views. In this era of Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, where information has become so easily available to everyone, and everyone is so up to date with the current information, I sometimes feel that this information is becoming more viral than the deadly coronavirus. The main purpose of our presentation is to share our experience and knowledge with you all. We will try to limit our medical terminologies so that everyone can understand our presentation, and we will be able to answer your questions at the end of the session. So, as you all know, COVID-19 is an ongoing worldwide pandemic. It has dominated this entire world. You will be surprised to know that almost 188 countries in this world are infected by the COVID-19 pandemic. It has disturbed our day-to-day life so much. So let me try to take you to the current situation of COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a very comprehensive website. I hope you all are able to see. This website has been created by Johns Hopkins University here in USA. This website is pretty much followed by everybody who is working on COVID. It gives a very comprehensive information on COVID. Here, if you see on the left-hand side, this figure 15 million. 15 million people have been infected with COVID-19 in the entire world in this span of literally 4 to 5 months. If you see here below, US is at number 1 and India is at number 3. These figures over here give you the distribution of cases in different countries and continents. If you go here on the right-hand side, this figure 638,169, this is the global deaths number. So many people have had death because of this disease. If you click here on this map, suppose if I click here on India, this map actually gives me detailed information of the confirmed cases and deaths in this particular state in the world. And this website is updated on a day-to-day basis. Now, before we begin the COVID-19 presentation, मुझे कुछ clear concepts I want to clear with you, all of you. What is COVID-19? What is SARS-CoV-2? And what is coronavirus? So COVID-19 is a disease caused by coronavirus, a specific type of coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2. Coronavirus is called corona because it has a crown-like appearance. So if you see on this picture, these red proteins, these are called as the spike proteins. I think there is a little bit of background noise. I hope you all can mute yourself so you can listen better. So these spike proteins basically are the main players of this COVID-19 disease because they help the virus enter into the human body. So how does that happen? ये कैसे होता है? So this is a very simple picture to show you what exactly happens at a molecular level when the coronavirus enters into your body and how does it enter. So this arrow indicates the spike protein which is present on the coronavirus. When it comes in contact with a specific receptor called the ACE2 receptor on the human cell surface, this activates the coronavirus spike protein. Once the spike protein is being activated, a series of chemical reactions ho jate hain, and then the virus enters into the human body. So you will be very surprised to know that this very tiny ACE2 receptor is present in majority of the organs of the human body. I have actually, this is just a diagram to show you so many organs have that receptor. But particularly the nose, lungs, the GI tract, and eyes. These are the main ports of entry for the virus. So ye organs say easily virus can enter into your body. So how does that happen? So basically, because these receptors are present in the nose, lungs, GI tract, and eyes, WHO recommends that we should be wearing a face mask or an eye protection to prevent the entry of this virus. Now, once the virus enters into the body, our body's defense mechanism comes into place and it starts producing this viral fighting proteins, which are called as antibodies. So this is actually ये एक microscopic level का picture है. So when the virus enters into your body, it creates an intense inflammatory response. Now I'm just showing you a normal lung, how it looks under the microscope. So these white spaces are the air spaces in which the normal oxygen exchange happens. And in normal conditions, this is a very smooth process. But when the COVID-19 infection hits the lung, here you see the normal air spaces are totally gone. They are filled with this pink fluid, and these blue dots is the inflammatory response of our body. So once the inflammatory response kicks in, all these air spaces get filled with fluid. As the air spaces get filled with fluid, there is difficulty in oxygen exchange. And that is why people with COVID-19 present with shortness of breath, dyspnea, and coughing. So from the current WHO data, one person infected with COVID-19 can infect almost 2 to 3 people. This emphasizes the fact that COVID-19 is a very contagious virus and it can spread easily among human beings. That is why WHO recommends to social isolation of the infected person. Now my friend Dr. Rakhi Krishnan will share her real-time COVID-19 cases with you.
So before Dr. Rakhi starts, a short introduction about her. She is
You see the screen?
actually from Patna. Actually from Delhi, taken her MBBS education from Patna. Later on, again, she shifted to Delhi and then to US. She is an internal medicine and infectious disease physician working in MedStar, US. She is having a vast experience into this field. Being a physician, it's been around 20 plus years. She is also a member of Infectious Disease Society of America and experienced in the regulation of infectious control policy. We are privileged to have her here today. Over to you, Dr. Rakhi.
I am Rakhi. You can please call me Rakhi. So I've been here working here for about 20 years or around 22 years. I'm an infectious disease and an internal medicine physician. Unfortunately, seeing a few too many cases of coronavirus, and I would like to share my experience with you. So I'm no expert. Actually, I would like to start off by saying I don't think there are too many experts in the world of coronavirus now because there is so much to learn about it. There is so little that we know, and we have a long way to go. To start off with, I would like to tell you about one of my patients who I saw today. This patient was about a 52-year-old gentleman who had contacted coronavirus while he was traveling back from Spain. And he was pretty healthy otherwise, but the sad thing is he got intubated, subsequently extubated, and it has been about 3 months since he has had the infection, and he still has shortness of breath. He still coughs. He's still not back to his baseline. So what I want you to know that you might get, if one gets coronavirus, you think that you will overcome the infection very quickly, but that's not the case. Many people have a lot of long-term sequela which has been associated with this virus. And some people are doing fine. They recover very well. Fortunately, about 80 to 85% patients do recover, but a large portion of them do have long-term sequela of persistent cough, shortness of breath, neurological disease, and other problems. So I would like to go to the next slide. This is my first case. I'm an HIV specialist as well. So this was a 47-year-old lady with HIV and high blood pressure who came into our hospital with complaints of dry cough, fever, and sore throat. What was interesting about this case, and I remember very distinctly that day I was on call and I was called from the emergency room that there could be 5 potential cases of coronavirus. But this lady, when I talked to her, she said that her son is a flight attendant and he just came back home about 3 to 4 days ago. And the son didn't have any symptoms at all. And after 3 days, this lady got hypoxic, she got very short of breath, she had to be intubated. She remained intubated for about 2 weeks, finally had a tracheostomy, and then was weaned off oxygen. So after 3 long weeks of hospitalization, she finally went home. And what I would like to point out to you with this case is that there are many, many people who are asymptomatic carriers. So just because you do not have symptoms does not mean that you should not be socially isolated. Please do continue to socially isolate yourself, wear a mask, because many patients might not have symptoms and they could very well have the infection. So this is what I wanted you all to learn from this case. She did well. We did initially use azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine, which was the only drug that we had at that point in time. This was towards March. And the outcome was good, but the lessons to be learned from this case is 40% of the patients could be asymptomatic carriers. As Rashmi pointed out with her pathology slides about the extent of inflammation seen in the tissues, from a radiological standpoint, if I can point it out, you will see that there is a lot of inflammation on the CAT scan, and the lungs rapidly fill up with fluid. All these inflammatory cytokines are released in the cells, in the tissue, in the lung area, and we have very rapid progression of symptoms. We have often seen patients not needing oxygen at all to go to being intubated within just a couple of hours. So this is the progression of the disease, which is so rapid and can easily cause people to die. So that is one thing which I wanted to point out. The next was initially we had a lot of interest in the role of hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine. It was, I myself, I'll tell you honestly that when I did not know about how hydroxychloroquine was working or not working, I went on prophylactic doses as well. But then there were studies which came out from essentially from France, and it says that hydroxychloroquine probably does not have much of a role, does not have much efficacy, but can cause side effects of arrhythmias. Now, during that early period of coronavirus, when this virus was multiplying very rapidly, which it still is, unfortunately, there were people who would take hydroxychloroquine just from stores and take it in large doses. And in the US and Arizona, we had an Indian couple, who took hydroxychloroquine, which was used to clean fish tanks, and they took a large dose of it and they ended up dying. The husband died. So as of now, as of today, hydroxychloroquine does not seem to be efficacious in the treatment of coronavirus. So I would not recommend it. If any of you are thinking about taking chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, which was, I know, a big hot subject in India, it is not recommended. So the next case I have is a 32-year-old gentleman who I saw about a couple of weeks ago. He is also an interesting story. He went with his parents who were, in 60s and 70s to a store because they were remodeling their bathroom. So when people remodel bathrooms over here, they usually go to the store, buy the stuff and remodel it themselves. So both parents and son were doing it. And both parents and son, all three of them got the coronavirus infection from the store. So he presented to our hospital with a 10-day history of fever, chills, cough, and shortness of breath. Again, very rapidly noted to be hypoxic with high oxygen requirements. So by that time, because this was about 2 weeks ago, we had more stuff in our pharmacy to use for this patient. We initially put him on remdesivir, which is an antiviral medication. This was followed by dexamethasone and then convalescent plasma, which Rashmi will talk later about. Unfortunately, he continued to worsen. He was subsequently intubated, and we had to transfer him to a tertiary care center. Tertiary care is a much bigger hospital, with a larger volume of patients dealing with COVID infections. So we had to transfer him there. I would like to talk a little bit about remdesivir, which is the antiviral medication which we used on him. I think it is available in India too. I was reading something about Bangalore, some pharmacy in Bangalore which is making remdesivir. It was initially used a couple years ago for Ebola, but it did not work well for Ebola at all. And this time around, we tried to use it for COVID. The only thing it does is that it reduces the hospital stay from 15 days to 11 days. There has not been much response in the rates of mortality, in the mortality rates, but the response time is reduced from 15 days to 11 days. Again, this was a study which came out in New England Journal of Medicine. And this was a study done at NIH, National Institute of Health, and they tried remdesivir in many patients to see how efficacious it was. And we usually give it intravenously, so the patient has to be in the hospital. The first dose is 200 milligrams, and then we use it for 4 more days in a dose of 100 milligrams. Again, this just shortens the recovery time in patients from 15 days to 11 days. And I heard it's very expensive in India. So if it is available, it is a good treatment option, but not the best, to tell you honestly. This is again about dexamethasone, which is, we use steroids, as Rashmi pointed out and alluded to earlier on. There is a lot of inflammation which goes on in the lung area, and all these inflammatory cytokines are released in the lungs, which includes T lymphocytes, macrophages, and other inflammatory cells are released. So dexamethasone, being a steroid, suppresses that, and it helps in recovery or prevention of hypoxia and prevents respiratory failure in patients. So this was again a study which was done, and it shows that if available, dexamethasone can reduce the mortality in patients who are getting progressively hypoxic. तो इसके लिए जैसे कि अगर आप स्टेरॉइड यूज करें या फिर प्रेडनिसोन यूज करें या फिर मेथिलप्रेडनिसोलोन यूज कर सकते हैं, उससे inflammation goes down, and once the inflammation goes down, your oxygen requirements will improve. So this was again a study done at NIH called Recovery Trial, and it reduces the 28-day mortality in patients who had high oxygen requirements. So we have been using this with some success in some of our patients. And if the patient is getting more and more, his oxygen requirements are getting worse, very much recommended to use steroids now. The next thing I would like to talk about is pregnant patients with COVID infection. जब भी हमारे पास हमारे वहाँ फ्लू वायरस होता है तो हम हर एक प्रेग्नेंट वुमेन को फ्लू वैक्सीन देते हैं. So that prevents the failure rate or complication rates in pregnant women. But fortunately, so far we have seen that pregnant women, when they contact COVID-19, there is not much increase in mortality or morbidity, which is very, very reassuring. Like we see in elderly men, older people, and men. These are the two, class of people who have shown increased mortality. But fortunately, so far we have not seen this in pregnant women. This is a study which was done in China, and they studied about 118 women, and to check if how many of them would actually have died with COVID. And they said all of them were discharged and there were no deaths reported. Some of them did need oxygen and did need a non-invasive mechanical ventilation, but most of them did very well, and they were discharged home. This is in comparison to flu, where we see much higher rates of morbidity and mortality in pregnant women. So good thing for pregnancy that not much mortality seen. So next thing I'd like to talk about is children with COVID-19. I'm an adult physician, so I don't deal much with children. But of course, with it is always something that is there at the back of our mind, that children were safe from COVID infection and they were not as infected as adults were, which was very reassuring. But lately, this was a study done in New York where they saw that they had Kawasaki-like presentation, which was a multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which resulted in rash, cardiac involvement, mucocutaneous involvement, and GI involvement. So a little bit more about this study, which was done in New York, and they checked about 191 patients who were children and who had the COVID infection. And what they found that many of these children did get to have cardiac or heart involvement. They had a rash, they had conjunctival involvement, they had nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. So unfortunately, as we used to think that children are totally immune to COVID, that does not seem to be the case. And there are children who are presenting with complications related to to the COVID virus, and it is most likely similar to a Kawasaki-like presentation. So something to take note of, that that children can get sicker. The last thing I would like to talk about is vaccines for COVID, because that has generated a lot of enthusiasm and interest, and billions of dollars are being pumped into manufacturing of vaccines. What we know right now on the front line, at least in the US, there are about 150 vaccines which are being developed, but there are two vaccines which have been on the forefront. One is a messenger RNA vaccine, and essentially, these are phase 3 trials which are going to be started soon on 30,000 people, I think by tomorrow or sometime next week. And it has shown good response. It has to be given in 2 doses, about 28 days apart. And so far, on the 45 patients that they tested this vaccine on, they had very good immune response, and they did have a good turnover, and they were immune to COVID infection. So this is one vaccine we are looking at closely. And the other vaccine is an Oxford COVID-19 vaccine, which is being, I think, manufactured in Pune, somewhere in Pune, and research is being done in Oxford. And this is a mutated form of adenovirus, and they somehow link it to the spike proteins, which generates an antibody response. So this is what I have to tell you about the vaccines. I would lastly like to take you to the last slide, which is, this is the flow chart that we use for our patients who have COVID infection. And the first thing is to check your oxygen levels. If your oxygen levels are fine, if it's not dropping, if you're not short of breath, you're okay. You don't need to panic. You can just stay at home and just make sure you drink plenty of fluids, stay hydrated. You can take Crocin or anything like that to reduce your fever. Do not use more ibuprofen, and then you will be fine. But if you are getting hypoxic, if your oxygen levels are going down, if you're feeling short of breath when you walk from your bedroom to your bathroom, that's the time when you need to take notice and probably check yourself in, because there are treatment modalities which are available. What we usually do in our hospital, and this is what I will let you know, is that if the patient has had symptoms and he's having increasing oxygen requirements, we consider putting them on remdesivir. That's the antiviral medication I talked about. If they have been sick for less than a week, we use remdesivir. If they've been sick for more than 1 week, we try to use dexamethasone. I usually use everything which I have. So I'll use remdesivir, dexa, and convalescent plasma, which Rashmi will talk about as well. There is another IL-6 inhibitor called tocilizumab, which is not very commonly available, and we still have some anecdotal reports to say that it benefits some people. If it is available in India, that is also something which should be used. So that is all that I have to say, and I would be willing to take any questions later.
I'm going to talk about the testing. There is a lot of cloud and mist regarding who should get tested, when should the testing be done, and how accurate is this testing. So let us try to clear this cloud first. So who should get tested? Now, in United States, we have some of the principles out here that have been put out there by the CDC. People who have signs and symptoms of COVID-19, they are definitely tested for the COVID-19 virus. What about people who do not have symptoms, but they are exposed to somebody who has symptoms? For example, if it's the husband who is admitted in the hospital, but before being admitted in the hospital for COVID-19, he came in contact with his wife, with his son, with his family. So all these people could be asymptomatic as of now. So all these people need to be tested for COVID-19 virus. Also, in US, people who actually are going for any procedures in the hospital currently, like any emergency procedure, surgical procedure, office procedure, everybody is tested for COVID-19. So when should the testing be done? I know this slide which I have put here is a very complex slide, but let's make it simple. I want you all to concentrate on these two graphs. One of them is this red graph. This red graph is the viral load in the lungs after infection with COVID-19. And the blue graph is the accuracy of detection of virus by testing. So suppose if a patient is, suppose if anyone gets an infection today, say on 25th of July, it will take almost a week to have the symptoms and also the viral load to reach to its peak. So if you do testing during this period, suppose if you do testing on day 2 or third day or fourth day, only 20% of those tests are going to come positive. But as the days goes by, the viral load increases and the accuracy of testing also increases. So when patients develop symptoms, the accuracy of testing is greater than 99%. Now, like I told you before, once the virus enters into the body, our body's defense mechanism kicks in. It starts fighting against the virus by producing these viral fighting proteins, which are called as antibodies. So I'm showing you these dotted lines here. These are the antibodies, and these antibodies start appearing in your body almost 10 to 14 days after the infection. And these antibodies, they play a vital role in the plasma therapy, which is currently offered for patients infected with COVID-19. So when COVID-19 came into US, like it came in US in February of this year. And there was a lot of outcry in US regarding testing. Like there is not enough testing, we don't have enough kits for testing, and there was a lot of chaos around. So to answer that, various companies started producing this various platforms by which they could detect the COVID-19 virus. And the most popular one was the Abbott testing platform. I'm going to enumerate just a few of these testing platforms, but trust me, there are more than 100 platforms right now here. So this Abbott testing platform became popular because it could be done in the outpatient settings, and it took only 5 minutes for the test to be positive. The negative result took 13 minutes. Here on the right hand side, this is just an Abbott platform. It's a very portable instrument. This is a cartridge, and here they load the sample. The sample is obtained either from the nose or the throat. And once the cartridge is loaded into this machine, you get the result in literally 5 minutes. And if anyone out there, any microbiologist, this is what I want to show. This is how the viral RNA looks like in the PCR. The other platform, which is currently being used in all the acute care facilities in the hospitals where there are high volume of cases, is the Cepheid GeneXpert machine. The viral detection takes 30 minutes, but you can load multiple samples at one time. So you can get results for many patients within half an hour. There's another platform called QIAstat DX Analyzer. This platform is also very comprehensive. It detects not only the coronavirus, but all other flu viruses. And like I said before, there are many, many more platforms. Till date, in US, 51 million tests have been performed, and the percent positivity rate is 10%. So what about antibodies? So antibody testing, this decision is currently made over here by either the state, the local health authorities, or your healthcare provider, meaning your doctor can actually order an antibody testing for you. So how do you interpret that result? If I have a positive antibody, that means that I had a COVID-19 infection and I recovered from it. But will I be protected again from reinfection? We do not know that answer as of now. We cannot say with certainty that if a patient has developed antibody, that means he will not get reinfected. What if my test is negative? If my test is negative, probably I never had a COVID infection, or I did have a COVID infection, but I did not produce any antibodies. So, in either of these scenarios, you have to take steps to protect yourself, follow the WHO guidelines, and protect others. So, I consider myself really fortunate to be involved in the care of COVID-19 patients as being part of a world's largest COVID plasma program. This program has been established here in USA in March 2020, and this was an initiative from the US FDA that collaborated with the American Red Cross Society at the National Blood Banking Committee. And it formed this big international project, which is currently running 24/7. It's called as the COVID-19 National Expanded Access Program. The goal of this program is to provide convalescent plasma to people who are currently infected with COVID-19. And till date, more than 2,600 hospitals have participated, and there are more than 11,000 physicians who are working as principal investigators, and I'm one of them for my hospital. So, what is convalescent plasma? You might be thinking. Convalescent plasma is actually plasma obtained from blood of patients who are infected and recovered from COVID 19. So, this is just a simple diagrammatic figure to show you how this plasma is obtained. Here on the left hand side, you have a red blood bag, and on the right hand side, there is this plasma bag. So the plasma is obtained from the whole blood by a technique called centrifugation. The plasma can be stored for almost a year, so it has a very long life, and it can be stored at 1 to 5 degrees Celsius in a freezer. Convalescent plasma therapy has been used in previous pandemics, such as polio, measles, Ebola in the past, and it has shown some effectiveness. That's why this therapy has currently been come into practice. So, who can donate plasma for COVID? People who are currently infected with COVID-19 and have fully recovered from it. Those are the people who can donate their plasma. Currently in US, these patients, they fill out an online form and they go to the American Red Cross Society to donate their plasma. So who are these people who should be given plasma? So as Dr. Rakhi Krishnan mentioned, like patients who are severely ill, admitted in the hospital, who are actually not responding to medical line of therapy, and who are really very sick, these are those patients who are eligible to receive plasma. And once these patients are being detected, a COVID plasma request is being made. And in this pandemic, every hospital has come up with some approach on how to deal with when a COVID plasma request is being made. In my hospital, we get a consent from the patient or the patient's relative. And then the patient is enrolled into this national COVID-19 National Expanded Access Program. Once the patient is enrolled, he receives a specific code, which is called as the EAP code. This EAP code is very important because this helps us track these patients after they receive plasma to see what happened with them. How are they doing? Did they have any adverse problems? Did their symptoms improve? Were they discharged from the hospital? So that is being done. Till date, we have more than 69,000 patients who have been enrolled in this program, and more than 43,000 patients have been infused plasma. So when the plasma is being given, it's a very simple process. It's a bedside procedure, and it is done under, you have to monitor. So it's pretty much monitored by either the nurse or the physician taking care of the patient. At one time, only 1 unit of plasma is given, and plasma is ABO blood group compatible, meaning if you are A positive, you will get an A positive plasma. If you're B negative, you get a B negative plasma. And as per all the rules and regulations, it is always tested negative for all other viruses. The dose of plasma depends upon the patient's weight, the height, the clinical condition. So when I consent patients for plasma, most of the patients come up with this question: is this plasma going to cause any side effect? So the answer to that is no. From the studies that has been done by this Mayo Clinic Expanded Access Program, they did an initial study on 10,000 patients and they found that the adverse reaction rate is less than 1%. The other question that they commonly ask me is this plasma going to cure my COVID-19? I would say that is a very difficult answer, but if it is given in early in the course of the disease, it has shown some beneficial effects. There are some early studies done by the Expanded Access Program where they have shown that if you give plasma very early in the disease course, the hospital stay rate has reduced, the ventilator requirement rate has reduced. So still larger studies are being awaited which need to establish the efficacy. But the COVID-19 national program is such an organized program that I am comfortable saying that it will definitely have an answer for all our questions. And so by this, I would like to say that we continue to work hard. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel is temporary. We just need to work hard and hang during this period together. There will be a day when we will not have to wear any masks. These lockdowns will end. People will start living a normal life. With this, thank you so much for your attention. And we both are happy to take any questions if you all have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rashmi and Dr. Rakhi. It was indeed a very, very lucid presentation. मैं आप दोनों को congratulate करना चाहती हूँ. Also, I want to thank you that मैं समझ सकती हूँ कि डॉक्टर्स कितना डिफिकल्ट होता है टू ट्रांसलेट एंड डिकोड इट इन अ लैंग्वेज की कोई मैन समझ पाए. Congratulations, आप लोगों ने सही में इसको बहुत अच्छा जस्टिस दिया है. Well done, both of you. And सही में completely एक comprehensive talk, pathology, the pathogenesis of the disease or the treatment, and then again the plasma therapy. Jo it is now a hot cake these days. What is plasma therapy? What is that? So Dr. Rashmi, good that you also educated the people about it. And yes, बहुत सारे questions है. People are all scared, all in distress कि क्या है क्या नहीं. So I'm sure बहुत सारे questions है. We have already started getting questions. So Dr. Tushar, I hand over the screen to you. Please, आप कुछ questions chat box में आए हैं उसको देखिए and please address them. And all the participants and attendees here are requested कि आप अपने questions chat box में डालिए. And either you put it to everyone or आप Dr. Tushar Samdani identify करके उसको डालिए, उनको डालिए.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to thank Rashmi and Rakhi because you don't know how much hard they have been working every day morning, and then at night they have been sitting for last 2-3 days and trying to finish their presentation. It has been a difficult time, and on Friday night in US, everyone wants to sleep. By this time, Rakhi must have already finished her first sleep cycle.
Can you tell what is the time over there? अभी क्या time हो रहा है वहाँ पे?
It's only 10 p.m. But on Friday evening, some people like to sleep, and Rakhi Krishnan is one of them. But she has done really excellent, and I'll talk to her later on about it. Second thing I would like to say, 6:30 in the morning, around 150 people coming is a great thing. Like that's a great interest over there.
I would like to add to that COVID-19 has basically brought people together.
Certainly.
Third thing I would like to say that whatever expressed here are not expert opinion, but they are personal experiences. Okay, we are not supporting anything or against anything. And second thing is, we are all contributing in some way or the other towards this pandemic, and we are all learning. Even Dr. Fauci always says, whom I greatly respect, that this is a learning process, and we have learned, as a surgeon, I have learned a lot of things. So that is the first question which I saw, and that was a question regarding when can the person donate COVID plasma. So I will direct it to Rashmi to answer that question.
So yes, people who have actually recovered from COVID-19 infection and are without symptoms for at least 14 days post symptoms, these people can actually donate. They do not have to be tested for any COVID-19 PCR or any antibody. They can go to the blood bank and they can donate if they are symptom free for at least 14 days post the infection.
The next question we have here is, we advise here Jal Niti hot vaporization. Any views, Rakhi, you have on that, if you are well aware of Jal Niti? This is a yoga session, so you will have a yoga question.
I don't know exactly what Jal Niti is, but
I will take over then. So Jal Niti basically is a yoga, correct me if I am wrong, by which basically it's a nasal cleansing process. Okay. And that has been practiced. In fact, one of the hospital in Pune physician practiced it, and they said that was very effective. I really respect people who do yoga, and I really admire, but I think so this is an adjunct. ये आप जलनेति आप बाकी सबके साथ कर सकते हो, सिर्फ जलनेति करने से कोविड-19 नहीं जाएगा. तो ये कहना है, अगर वी हैव टू प्रूव दैट जलनेति, एंड दिस इज माय पर्सनल ओपिनियन, कि जलनेति से सब ठीक होगा, तो द ओनली वे टू प्रूव इज we have to send a doctor in a room where COVID-19 patient is there without mask, without PPE, and he goes in, patient is coughing, and he comes out and does Jalniti and doesn't get infected. That is not possible. That study is not possible. The only way I say is wear your mask, wear your gown, do social isolation, and when you come home, you can do Jalniti, you can drink hot water, you can apply castor oil to your nose, whatever makes you comfortable. Immune booster, everything is good as long as it is not harming you. So Jalniti is good to clean your nose. We use for sinuses, sinusitis, and you can practice that. But I cannot definitely say at this juncture that it is the treatment which is, or it is a precautionary measure, 100% precautionary measure, if I have answered your question. Okay.
yes.
There is a
One
question.
should take to what preparation one SC?
Seema,
What are the best preventive measures one should take to avoid COVID?
what are the best preventive measures? You want to take it?
Yeah, best preventive measures would be to actually, not go out in public. If you're going out in public, always wear a face mask. And when you come home, you have to actually have this repeated hand washing technique where you are keeping your hand hygiene. Jalniti, I think, is also good. It's just a nasal hygiene procedure. If you can do it, it's fine, but it is not advisable for people who are hypertensive. So I would actually say that if people are having some blood pressure issues, they should not be doing Jalniti.
Other precautionary measure is social distancing is 6 feet outside. What we practice in US now, I know in India there is lockdown, a lot of stress because the population is huge. Social isolation in India is next to impossible until unless there is lockdown. Actually, in US, we all go out, we go biking, we go hiking, we go everything, but we maintain mask, we maintain social distancing, we are with our friends, but we know that they are not having any symptoms. So that is the best way. Now, there was a question which I had moderated a session with another infectious disease doctor, and there was a question which was asked, what should we do if we have family member together or couple of friends come to us? If you want to have some friends, first of all, it is not advisable to get anyone, but the thing you can do is you can maintain ventilation in home, open your windows, air conditioner, whatever helps you ventilation. That would be a better way for air circulation and preventing any spread of infection.
So there are a lot of questions. This question, can we donate blood in this pandemic? Of course, you can donate blood in the pandemic. So currently in USA, what is happening is definitely we need blood. The blood banks, hospital, they need blood because there are not only patients of COVID-19, you will have acute care patients who are, people who are going a delivery. They need blood. So yes, you definitely you can donate blood. Now you just have to make sure in US, basically what they are doing is the American Red Cross Society, they schedule a date and a time for donating blood. And that is how you can actually schedule a day, a time, and only one person at a time should be donating blood. There is another question there is news about antiviral mouthwash. Is it effective to decrease the viral load? I did read about this actually, this news about antiviral mouthwash. This was a study done in Sweden, but I am not 100% sure how the study was done on which patients was it done. So oral hygiene, of course, is going to help because, like I told you, the nose, the lungs, those are the most common ports of entry. So keeping a mouthwash would be good. I am not sure about the antiviral mouthwash.
Raki, you have anything to add?
Right, just to give you a couple points on that. So the virus is droplet and mostly by respiratory. It's a respiratory pathogen, right? So it has to go through your nasal mucosa. So even if you have an antiviral oral, mouthwash, it's not going to help much. I think it's more when you inhale the virus and someone coughs and sneezes in front of you, that is the way it is transmitted. So mask. That's it.
Raki, one question directed to you. There is a question which is, ma'am, if we have a breathing problem, can we live for a long time in COVID-19?
Absolutely. Just
Good.
stay indoors, be careful, and you can just live as you were living. There's no reason for you to have any problems as long as you don't get the infection. Yeah, but you have to be careful. Yes. Because higher morbidity with people who have chronic lung conditions. Definitely.
Yeah, and as Rashmi pointed to the slide, the microscopic slide, if your lungs are well expanded, good oxygenation, with COVID-19, the lung is destroyed. So if you have lung problem, just exercise, the breathing exercises and whatever Raki has said.
The pranayam is going to help. The 10-minute breath test is going to help in improving your breathing issues.
So why does COVID-19 disease spread more from dead bodies? Do you want to take it?
It's not spreading more, I would say, but COVID-19 can spread from dead bodies through secretions. I would say there was some people said that COVID-19 lives in blood for a longer period of time, but still there are not well done studies on that. But it can spread from dead bodies if there are secretions.
So I'll tell you one thing. COVID-19 lives in body fluid even after your symptoms goes away. So it is shown that COVID-19 is in your intestinal fluid, sweat fluid, urine, and even in your stools after 28 days after your symptoms have gone away. So as a surgeon, we have to be very protective, and that's why we are doing in US testing before doing any surgery. Okay, so just a small example, this is not related to dead body, but I had a patient who had cancer and he was COVID positive, and we cannot delay cancer surgery. So what we did is we put him in isolation. We waited for his symptom to settle down. Our protocol is wait for 1 month. And after 1 month, we retested him and he was negative. And then we took him for surgery, cancer surgery. He had lost around 10 kg of weight in that span, which is a big amount of weight before surgery that you lose, and it is not good. But still, we took him for surgery. He did well. He's doing great. He's COVID negative. He underwent a big surgery. So yes, there are fluids which contains virus over there, and that virus can spread. So that may be the reason. There is another question. How can
This is actually a very good question that actually I should have touched base this. This is from Nayan Khanolkar. It's a nice question that there are some news spread that people are infected and recovered without symptoms. So this, I think Dr. Raki has mentioned that 85% of the people actually get infected, but they get recovered. There are only very people who have who have the vulnerable people are the ones who go in the hospital. How can I understand if I have been recovered through it, and if so, when can I donate plasma then? So the only way you could know if you have recovered through it is if you had symptoms of COVID-19, and if you think that you had COVID-19 or you came in contact with somebody with COVID-19, then you need to get tested for the COVID-19 antigen. And antibody testing is currently not done to see if you have recovered from it, because you can produce antibody, you can actually still have infection going on.
So if I have been recovered through it, is your symptoms should go away and you wait for 2 to 3 weeks and then you donate plasma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the current rule, I think so, which is followed.
There's no antibody or COVID PCR testing, because even if you have infection, like Dr. Tushar Samdani said, if you have infection with COVID-19, that virus is going to stay in your body for at least 30 to 40 days. In the early phases, it is going to be symptomatic, then it may not be asymptomatic, or it may not be that infective. So if you do testing in that period, your COVID-19 PCR is definitely going to be positive. So the testing phenomenon does not come actually right now with the plasma. All they need is you have to be symptom free. And some blood banks actually here in US have started to do this antibody titration, where they are trying to get the patient's plasma, check for antibodies, how much antibody titer is in that plasma. So that titer, if that titer works against, neutralizing this COVID-19 virus. So those studies, but they are very early studies which are going on.
There is a question, Raki. First, not many people may know what is Kawasaki-like illness, but there is a question is, what's the incidence of Kawasaki-like illness among the positive COVID-19 children, if you know that answer?
Right. So, as I had told you this early, Kawasaki-like illness is, there is inflammation in the multi-system organ inflammation in your body, which involves the heart, the skin, GI tract, and everything. So the incidence of Kawasaki-like illness is not very clear as to how many children would get it, but they had seen about 180 to 190 children in New York who had gotten it. So it's kind of early to say what the exact percentage of Kawasaki-like illness will be, but what the importance of the slide was that earlier on we had known that COVID does not affect children at all, and they were immune to it up until the age of 16. But unfortunately, that does not seem to be the case. And there are children as young as, neonates and less than 5 years old as well, who are being affected by COVID. So that was the purpose of that slide. I really don't know if we have well-documented studies to say what the percentage it covers.
One question we have is antigen testing, its specificity.
Yes, this is actually a very nice question from Dr. Shilpa, a pathologist herself. So antigen testing specificity and sensitivity, like I explained, it depends on what phase of illness you are in. If you're doing it in the very early phase, like within a period, the sensitivity and specificity of detecting that particular COVID-19 virus would be less than 20%. If the virus reach its peak when you have symptom onset, your antigen specificity sensitivity is going to be greater than 99%. Now, the platforms that I showed you here in US, these are like really very good enclosed platforms. So all these platforms have a specificity and sensitivity of at least 95%. And if there is some false positivity, we usually get an error, and then the sample is retested again for that.
So there is
I would just like to add one thing, and it's a pretty funny story actually. One of my husband's aunts, she started having fever. And she was told that, I told her that, you being in Delhi, you should be tested for COVID. So she went and asked her doctor, and the doctor said that, नहीं अभी तो आपको बुखार है, अभी 3-4 दिन रुक जाइए, बुखार होने के 3-4 दिन बाद आपका कोविड टेस्ट पॉजिटिव आएगा. So this is not true. As soon as you have symptoms, as Rashmi said, you can be tested and your test will have a sensitivity of over 95%.
Rakhi, this question for you. We are at 9:58 question. We have still 20 questions to go. This question was asked 10 minutes ago, and this question is virus air spread?
This is actually a very good question.
Air spread, definitely. It's an airborne and droplet spread virus. जब भी आप छींको, आप खांसो, अगर आप 6 फुट की दूरी पे नहीं रहो, मास्क नहीं पहनो, तो सामने वाले को बहुत easily हो सकता है कोविड. कई बार we have noticed, WHO just recently said that it's an airborne disease as well, where small, tiny airborne particles can be there in the atmosphere for a longer period of time. So definitely airborne and droplet transmission.
We will club this question with what precaution you should take while you're taking a flight. So I would just give it to you again. If they are going
for a long flight.
Long flight. Yeah, that's... I would ideally ask you not to fly because, it is so hard. But if you have to fly, then, at least wear a tight fitting mask. And then on top of that, if you have a face shield, that will be very helpful. Also learn to decontaminate the surfaces. So the seat that you're sitting or the trays that you're using, if you can wipe it off, that will be of help.
और एक चीज है फ्लाइट में, I think so some airlines are following that they are not making everyone sit next to each other. They are spacing it out. They also have regulations nowadays, and they are not even allowing people without mask nowadays. That is in US at least I have heard, but maybe same in India also. But that is what we can say about flight. Now, again, one more question. I'll give it to you again. What care should be given to a COVID recovered patient? COVID recovered, or personally, if you have recovered from COVID, is that what
if
care
you have
should
recovered, right? If you have recovered, see, as per CDC guidelines, they are saying that if you are 3 days after your last fever, we are asking people to get back to work. Or 7 days from the onset of your symptoms, you can get back to work. So most people, they are doing well. You do not need to stay home. If you're 3 days to about, I would say roughly about a week from the onset of your symptoms, if you're doing fine, get back to work. That being said, certain populations are having chronicity of symptoms. Like they have persistence of cough, they'll have shortness of breath, they'll have, fatigue. A lot of them are complaining of fatigue and tiredness. So if that be the case, if you unfortunately fall in that spectrum, I would advise that you continue to take bed rest, take fluids, eat as healthy as you can, do pranayam and all that, and that will be of help.
Next question is 4 months since I have recovered from COVID, can I still donate blood for plasma? We have answered it. I think so. Yes, you can. Is steam inhalation of any use in preventing the virus? We have almost answered that question with Jalniti, that you can do whatever you think is going to clean your nose, but there is no definitive way. We should use protection, face mask. That would be recommended. So I won't say just steam inhalation. Use all the protective masks and then take care of it. There is, if someone is suffering with normal cold and cough, what are the chances of him getting caught with COVID?
Do you think they should get tested for COVID?
If someone is suffering with cold and cough, okay, you have a patient with cold and cough, what are the chances of him getting caught with COVID? Is it more than normal population, or is it same as the normal population?
Oh, no. So definitely much higher risk. That is why we are saying that people during the flu season, we should get the flu vaccine this year. आप लोग को भी अगर flu vaccine ले सकते हो this coming winter, आप लोग को लेना चाहिए, because deadly combination if you get flu and COVID together.
Okay. There is question regarding arsenic album homeopathy tablet. I am sorry, I can't answer that question. Ayurvedic, homeopathic. There are a lot of medications, lot of people have started immune boosters and other things. As long as you know that it is safe, you take it. Otherwise, I would not recommend anything which is not scientifically proven. There was initial cry that hydroxychloroquine is good, and then Raki has said and that it is not good. So until unless scientifically proven, please don't take anything. Otherwise, there anything has side effects. So it's difficult. And then Raki madam के लिए question है, Vestige is marketing its health supplement to increase immune system. Is it good to take? I answered it my way. Raki, if you have something else to add, please add.
नहीं, वेस्टीज में मैं तो जानती नहीं हूँ वेस्टीज क्या है, ऑनेस्टली बोलूँ तो मुझे पता नहीं है वेस्टीज क्या है, लेकिन यहाँ पे हम क्या क्या सप्लीमेंट्स देते हैं मैं आपको बताती हूँ. हम बोलते हैं पेशेंट्स को विटामिन डी लेने के लिए, विटामिन सी लेने के लिए. अगर आपके मल्टी विटामिन्स में जिंक है तो जिंक भी लेने के लिए बोलते हैं. तो अगर वेस्टीज में ये सारे कुछ हैं तो आप जरूर ले लीजिए, अच्छा रहेगा.
There is a question
I really don't
I did not understand.
But this is about WHO guideline, Mr. Trump ban. What your opinion or? I'm not.
Let's
sure
not
if
answer
he
Mr.
is-
Trump's question or political question right now. So we'll go to the next question, which is good. If COVID germs are present in stool and urine, then how can we avoid using common toilet areas in office? So you want to take it, Raki?
See, as I said earlier, अगर आपके पास कोई एंटीसेप्टिक वाइप है तो आप उससे टॉयलेट सीट को वाइप करके अच्छे से यूज करिए. वो जो टैप्स के वो है उनको भी एंटीसेप्टिक वाइप से यूज करिए. उसके अलावा आई थिंक अगर आप ऑफिस में हो, एज तुषार ने पहले बोला कि अगर आप खिड़की दरवाजे खोल कर रखो ताकि थोड़ा सा क्रॉस वेंटिलेशन हो. और अगर मास्क हम लोग सब ऑफिस जाते हैं, ऑल ऑफ अस हैव बीन वर्किंग, and unfortunately यहाँ पे we can't even open the windows and doors because everything is air conditioned here. So at a certain, you guys are at an advantage कि आप लोग ऑफिस में जाके खिड़कियां खोल दो, दरवाजे खोल दो और मास्क पहन लो और आप लोग सेफ रहोगे. और जितना हो सके टॉयलेट की सीट को वाइप करके यूज करो.
और अगर आप एक्चुअली कोविड-19 इन्फेक्टेड हो तो आप घर ही रहो. Don't go in office.
And that time the virus can spread. So as a surgeon, जब हमको भी बोला गया था कि virus is in stool and urine for a long time, but we were told that after 10 days, 15 days, that virus is just detected, but it is not infective virus. Okay, so that virus is detected, and that's why we have been conducting surgery after 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, Dr. Girish, how effective is latte milk and Ayurvedic Kada in treating COVID-19? Again, we would say that we really don't know, but if it helps you find whatever, please do scientific things. I can't answer that question.
Now, this asthma and COVID, yes, this is a deadly combination. Actually, in the convalescent plasma that we enroll patients, this is the most commonest question they ask us. Patients who have underlying lung problems such as asthma. So asthma and COVID is a deadly combination. But I don't know, Raki can answer how these patients do, like having underlying lung issues along with COVID.
तो भी उसके लिए मैं यही बोलूंगी कि एस्मा जब आपको होता है तो आपके लंग में ऐसे ही इरिटेशन है, देयर इज ब्रोंकियल नैरोइंग, there is probably increased inflammatory response, which is just going to get worse with the COVID infection. तो कोई भी लंग के कंडीशन हो आपको बहुत ध्यान देना पड़ेगा.
there's a question, क्या सच में चाइना वायरस की निर्मित कर सकता है,
This is
ऐसा होता है, और 2 वायरस उनके पास है?
So actually, this data is kind of actually there is a lot of controversy whether this virus leaked from a Chinese lab, biosafety lab, level 3 lab, or this virus came from a natural origin. So from the studies done till date, it has shown that this virus, जो इसका virus का जो RNA, that is actually a natural origin. It cannot be genetically engineered virus. As far there has been like some data out there that it leaked from the Chinese lab, and they were working. There are a lot of labs working for coronavirus for almost 2 to 3 years now. But when from the studies done till date, it shows that whatever the RNA is of this virus, that's natural origin. It cannot be genetically engineered. In fact, we have a slide here which I wanted to share with you all about how COVID-19 actually it came from the bats through the pangolins into humans. So it initially the bats actually carry a lot of coronaviruses to begin with, and there are caves in China which are filled with bats, and there are researchers in China who are actually doing projects on all these coronaviruses. So the bats actually used pangolins as the intermediate host, and then they jumped into humans, and that's how this coronavirus came. Now, whether it leaked from a lab, leaked from from an animal market, that is still we do not know entirely. But if you look at the genetic code of this virus, it is totally natural in origin. It cannot be genetically engineered in any lab so far.
So this is what Dr. Rashmi feels, but I don't know. There are many theories of this virus coming out. So let's move to the next question, which is a nice question. What type of mask would you recommend, Rakhi? Simple homemade mask on, or wear an N95 mask? So now I can answer that, but if you want to take it.
अगर आपके पास N95 मास्क है, आप प्लीज हम लोग को भेज दो.
हाँ, seriously.
हमारे पास तो नहीं है, कम है. लेकिन if you're not going to be in a hospital setting, अगर आप दूसरे patients के पास नहीं जा रहे हो, तो just a mask would be fine. It is good enough. तो
Yeah, N95 mask is used even during surgery only in aerosolized procedure, यानी जहाँ छोटे-छोटे वेपर्स के साथ वायरस स्प्रेड हो सकता है. जब लाइक पेशेंट को एनेस्थीसिया इंट्यूबेट करता है या अपर रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक में सर्जरी होता है, तो उसी टाइम N95 हम यूज करते हैं. इवन ड्यूरिंग कॉमन सर्जरीज व्हिच आई डू, we are not using, or a laparoscopic surgery, we are not using N95 mask. We are using the routine precaution, but we are making sure that the patient has we are testing all the patients before surgery. That is also one thing. So at home, N95 is not needed. You should use simple homemade mask, and that's what everyone is recommending. Mask की जगह रुमाल use कर सकते हैं.
Yes, you can use it.
Role of antibiotic in COVID-19, if you have, Rakhi.
Yeah, so unfortunately, antibiotics will not work for COVID-19. It's a virus. वो तो वायरस है, वो उसके लिए antibiotics काम करते हैं बैक्टीरिया के लिए. तो sometimes we have used, to tell you honestly, antibiotics, but when we suspect super added bacterial pneumonias, then we do use antibiotics. But otherwise, antiviral is the mainstay of treatment.
If you have a patient who has just a throat infection, irritation, cough, do you routinely send him for COVID-19 nowadays, or no? Or what is testing?
मेरे से पूछ रहे?
हाँ, आपसे ही पूछ रहे.
तो हमारे यहाँ का प्रोटोकॉल ये है कि anytime there is any patient coming in for sore throat, cough, congestion, which seems to be just probably upper respiratory tract infection, we do test for COVID. क्योंकि हम नहीं चाहते हैं कि वो अगर वो कोविड हुआ और हमने मिस किया तो वो दूसरे लोगों को वो स्प्रेड करे. That is why we are extra cautious, and we do test patients even if they have mild symptoms for COVID, just as a precautionary thing to avoid a spread to others.
There is a question, Indian use many spices in cooking. Is there any positive effect in fighting coronavirus? I am not aware of that. Raki, anything?
मैं ये बोलूंगी कि काफी टर्मरिक या हल्दी जो आप यूज करते हो उसका काफी दिखाया गया है कि it helps patients with underlying conditions, but to use it just to treat COVID is probably not really recommended. Just to treat it. I don't know if it has some efficacy or not. I cannot
We
say.
have 40 more questions and we have 6 minutes left. Okay.
This, I don't know, man who says that everyone will suffer at least once from corona. Is it true? So the COVID-19 positivity rate right now in US is 10%, which is not very high. But if you're talking about all other coronaviruses, of course, you might get some other type of coronavirus which is not COVID-19. It is possible.
SARS-CoV-2, you mean to say?
I mean to say SARS-CoV. Just SARS-CoV is not as infective as SARS-CoV-2 is. So
if you say that there is no vaccine in next 2 years, is it possible that everyone can be infected because this is R0 is 2, 3? So that is
yes,
possible.
that's possible too.
That is possible, and that's why you have to be healthy. Do your yoga, do your exercises, eat good food, and
80% people are not going to reach to the hospital.
Yeah.
20% are the ones who are going to reach to the hospital, and these are patients who are going to have underlying comorbidities. So those people really need to be extra careful.
There is a question, homeopathy doctor open dawa kar rahe hai. We do not know. I don't support it until it's scientifically proven. Anything from your side, Raki? Homeopathy, Ayurvedic.
Homeopathic का मुझे भी कुछ idea नहीं है. Sorry.
Formality is done for a vaccine. So vaccines, they actually go they have to go through a lot of phases, from phase 1 to phase 4.
Phase 1 trial, just एक simple language में 10 patient पे 10 लोगों पे होता है, and it is just to make sure is it safe. Second phase जो होता है उसमें देखना पड़ता है कि इफेक्टिव है क्या और क्या डोज में इफेक्टिव है. और थर्ड फेज में जब होता है, जो राखी ने बोला, ऑक्सफोर्ड की एक वैक्सीन आ रही है, एंड देयर इज वन मोर वैक्सीन शी सेड, जो थर्ड फेज, मॉडर्ना हियर इज शोइंग दैट थर्ड फेज में जा रहा है. That is on a larger scale, 30,000, 10,000 people पे वो study होगा.
There's actually a caveat to that Oxford vaccine. You know, the WHO actually came up with a caveat because the initial testing which was done, it was done in the age group of only 18 to 55. So pregnant women were excluded, elderly people were excluded. So still they really need to they should have a solid data if they really want to bring it out in the public and give it to everyone. It's not like a one size fits all thing. Everybody, it has to actually pass through it. There should be a diverse population on testing before they bring it to public.
So phase 3 trial में जब होता है तब larger scale पे होते हैं, and they also test, is it safe, is it effective, and they compare it with other medications or treatment available. So some of the vaccine are going to phase 3, and the question is,
this is actually a good
will COVID-19 be a foolproof insurance? So I have asked and discussed this with many infectious disease doctor, and we'll take Raki's opinion also. So they say that we are not sure. Antibodies effectivity is also getting down. After 6 months, they are not effective and patient can be reinfected. So COVID-19 vaccine will be foolproof. We don't know. In fact, they may last for 9 months, 12 months, and you may need revaccination. And the other thing is, before all this vaccine comes, they have to make sure that it does not cause any long-term side effects. So it is still not that January is the answer, because most of them are a phase 3 trial. Raki, you have anything to add that will the COVID-19 vaccine will be a foolproof?
इसका answer time will tell. I cannot tell. Only time will say whether it has long-term benefits or not.
So here is a friend of mine had come in contact with COVID-19 patient, but she's not having any severe symptoms. She's just having rhinitis at least from 12 days and now headache. She after then came in contact with many others. Is there possibility she may be infected? she has come in contact with a COVID-19 patient, if it's a close contact, she should definitely get tested for that. By that, you will definitely come to know if she has infection or not. She haven't visited the hospital due to stigma that she may get positive in the test, but may not have infection. It's better to get tested if she has come in contact with COVID-19.
Is it really required to wash the vegetables or any bag that we buy from the market and also the clothes worn to office? We
Washing vegetables has become a big deal. They have said, I have read in papers where they are using vinegar and they're using water as a combination to clean vegetables. Yes, of course, you should always wash the vegetables and you always have to cook them well before you eat them. At least I would practice that in this COVID-19.
So there is someone who's asked a question.
I'm sorry to jump in. What is the role of sodium hypochlorite in washing vegetables?
I don't know.
I don't know.
If someone has something, I don't know.
So sodium hypochlorite, I think, is an antiseptic, right? So I don't know if it will eliminate the virus too. But don't know much.
There are some Indian doctors who are saying that sodium hypochlorite is safe and it's completely foolproof for washing vegetables. Fine. You can proceed, Dr. Tushar.
So there is a question which is straight to my heart.
You should give a talk on that.
I can give a talk on this because I worked a lot on this. So there is a question. Please elaborate regarding the pre-op precaution for elective surgeries, mainly GI surgeries. So let me tell you, in March, we were working full flown and we had a busy schedule. And all of a sudden, COVID-19 came and we were not knowing anything. So we went through China's record and we studied and we had a system-wide, I took part of cancer patients and system-wide organization of what we can do. So what we initiated in our hospital is we stopped everything and then we only started emergency surgeries and all the patients were tested. We had that capability of testing. That 10 days, 15 days break gave us capacity to get our testing kits ready and everything. And then slowly phases opened. I continued my cancer surgeries. And as I said, the first cancer surgery which I did in the system, was for COVID positive. We waited for 4 weeks before we did that surgery. He became asymptomatic, his symptoms subsided, and then we tested him again and then did his surgery. So that was the precaution which we took. Nowadays, we are full flown. We are doing all elective surgeries, but all patients are tested. Now, if the test is and so the way it works is you get tested and the patient goes into quarantine for 5 days. We get the result. And once the result is negative, we take him for surgery. If the result is positive and the surgery is not an urgent surgery, he waits because it can not only cause problem to him during surgery, but can cause a problem to all healthcare workers and spread the virus. So we wait. And then again, we wait for 1 month and see how it goes. And then we retest him. That's a policy which we are following in our institution. And we are around 10 hospitals.
Indian origin person.
Is an Indian origin person more immune to COVID? BCG vaccination has shown some benefit. And Raki, if you have any answer to that, but I did not read it much.
There's a new literature on that.
BCG vaccination, because every Indian is BCG vaccinated.
Right. So, yeah, I think BCG vaccination, there's a study going on in Australia where they're studying the efficacy of BCG. I think it is still too early to comment on that. Some people are saying because of low mortality in the Indian subcontinent and, Pakistan and other South Asian countries, maybe there is a protective role from BCG, but it's kind of premature to comment on that.
There are two questions which are kind of similar. I see here, claiming herd immunity, what is your stay and what exactly is herd immunity? So herd immunity is basically when majority, at least 70 to 80% of the population, if they get infected and then if someone develops an antibody, you can protect that there can be a herd immunity. Now with COVID-19, the situation is the infectivity rate has still it's not 70 to 80% population that's being infected. And if that happens, right now, actually, there is so much of stress that the entire medical system is under severe stress with these 10% positivity rate. If 70 to 80% people get infected,
So I
it's
think so.
going to be
Sweden started and practiced herd immunity. They did. Everyone went into lockdown, and Sweden was the only country which did not go into lockdown, and they practiced herd immunity. And their results have not been great. So I don't think, and even UK also initially thought that in United Kingdom that they will do herd immunity, but I don't think so. It worked. So yes.
So if your question is like if people all in can party and if everybody in the party gets infected with COVID and they can actually have herd immunity, that is not true. There should be at least 70 to 80% of the population of a country that needs to be affected by this virus. And we cannot imagine that with COVID-19.
Thanks a lot. I think so. We should end it. It's 10:33 here, and you guys are enthusiastic, and we are too. But we can surely answer more questions. And again, the views are personal views. We are not expert, and we are happy to help. We can always answer your question later on through this platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tushar and Dr. Rashmi, Dr. Rakhi. A small formality by Dr. Ramesh Mantri, a vote of thanks to you all. It is going to be too short but, with respect to what you have given to all of us. So much of learning. I mean, we being doctors, despite being doctors, there were so many new eye-openers for us also. So wonderful. Over
रश्मी खूप खूप आशीर्वाद खूप बरं वाटलं you have progressed very well I have seen you after years I am really pleased thank you there is no need to say thank you to family members but love you thank you Rakhi
Thanks a lot, everyone.